Hello, my name is Colin Donaldson, and I'm the General Secretary of GBEU in Switzerland. And I have to admit that I feel a bit of a fraud to be the first up here to talk about suffering, especially after a film like that. I come from Switzerland, which is a very peaceful nation, and many of you will know that it's also one of the richest countries in the world, and it has a great Christian heritage. And many of you would probably just wish that your own countries would have these characteristics. Yet, in a country where students have everything, we meet a very different kind of suffering. GBEU Switzerland started in the 1930s and is very well established. Indeed, it has a lasting influence in the church as well as in the public sphere. The movement has seen quite a few of its former students take up key roles as professors, church denomination leaders, business leaders, or even in politics as members of parliament. However, together with others, GBEU, for the last 30 years, has received grants from the federal government that it hands out to organizations that work on youth development. Last year, the government decided to stop funding organizations it perceived as coming from the evangelical tradition. The argument was that because our principal goal in their eyes was to convert, we were not actually looking out for the best interest of children and youth. So, after much prayer and reflection, we actually decided to appeal the decision. This started a painful process where we learned more about what they really thought of us and the argumentation they used. At this stage, it looks likely we will lose the appeal, since our Swiss-German friends have already lost their own appeal. And in some sense, it's okay, because how many of you, for example, get government help to do student ministry? Probably not many. But the more painful side of this whole process is the accusatory language that's been used against us. It says our principal goal is to use manipulation and coercion with the sole purpose of winning adherents. And so, in order so that we can get money out of them. And the consequences of these accusations have already been felt by other evangelical organizations. For example, the certification that is required for organizing youth conferences will no longer be handed out to evangelical organizations, meaning an end to the highly popular Christian Union camps. As most of our conferences are with students that are above the legal age, this does not affect us. But it might not be long before even more schools ban us from their campuses, based on this spurious accusation from the government. But another more serious consequence of these accusations is that Christians start to believe that sharing the gospel is inherently manipulative, and therefore stop doing it altogether, and ultimately lose confidence in the power of the gospel to transform lives. However, we ought not to be surprised by these accusations. In the Western world, it is a sign of the time. In a very short space of time, we have gone from being well-respected members of society to being totally irrelevant, and from being irrelevant to being outright dangerous. It would probably not be a surprise to many of you to hear that the organization that has benefited the most from this fallout and the reallocation of the funds is the lesbian, gay, transgender youth organization, which, from what we can tell from their webpage, don't offer much that is in the spirit of the law for these handouts, that is training and formation, but rather acts like a political lobby. This might cause us despair at the changing values of our society, but I see this as an opportunity an opportunity for dialogue with our society about what values actually are, and to show the relevance of Christian values in our own lives. In other words, we're called to be salt and light in the world. And as Christians, we are to rise up and stand firm in the gospel, for it is truly good news for all who believe.